And I'll turn the time over to our keynote speakers. Thank you so much.
Welcome everyone to the session, Connecting Users and Content Beyond Keywords. I'll introduce my colleagues first before we start the presentation. I'm Ngian, Choh, Director of the National Library Singapore, and I look after the needs of the end users who are using our libraries. On my left is Siang Hock. He is our solution architect, and he does a lot of the thinking behind the services that we provide. On my right is Chan Peng Wah. He's the innovation chief, and he looks into the innovation of services. So first, I'd like to say a few words about why we chose this title, Connecting Users and Content Beyond Keywords. I think libraries are very well known for connecting users and content. However, we noticed in the last 5 to 10 years, many people are still using keywords to search for information. We feel that libraries can value add by going beyond keywords. How do we make meaning of the keywords that people key into to search for information? So we will show you a little bit of the experiments that we have been doing the last 6 to 12 months. So what we'll cover is the journey so far, and then touch on a few experimentations, and end with some concluding remarks. As I say, the role of libraries have not changed a great deal from, I would say, historic times to today. Libraries are here to connect people to content, and to connect content to content. For example, the meta text, the catalog records, bring us to the content itself. And also libraries connect people to people. People come to the library and they meet other people, they meet librarians, they meet other experts, and they also get information from other people. So libraries have been performing all these roles for a very long time, and we do not see that these roles will change very significantly over time. However, the way people access information, the way we present information will change quite considerably. Here you see how people discover information. Some of them like to come in and they just browse around the shelves, and then they take something from the shelf and discover something new. For some of them, they're very targeted. They come into the library looking for very specific things. I think all of us are quite familiar with a user who may come into the library and walk straight to the computer science department or the parenting department and then collect the books that they want to read. But the last one, surprise discovery, is where we feel there is large potential for libraries to develop more services to enable the users to discover in surprising ways. So I would like to ask Peng Wah to come and talk a little bit about this, because he has been doing a lot of work on how to let people discover information in ways that are surprising.
Hi. I think what we are trying to do is, in the past, a lot of the times that we expect users to either know what they want, or they know what they want but they don't know where, and they will ask a librarian. But we realize that there are times that they can discover something they wasn't expecting, or discover something that is branching off from what they originally intend. To us, it's a surprise to them that I didn't know that it existed. I didn't know that something has been hidden as a treasure. So by creating a multiple paths for our patrons, for our customers, we will allow them to take the liberty to walk around, even though they were looking for something specific. But at the end of the day, apart from getting what they wanted, they may along the path discover things that they didn't know were there or didn't know the library would be able to provide. To do that, of course, it is not so simple. That's why we're talking about connecting things, connecting contents through their meaning, or anticipating the user, or even looking at the past search pattern of what they do to try to figure out what some of the things that he might be of interest to him, even though that he wasn't looking for it originally for his own purpose and intent. So that's what we talk about, a surprise. Hopefully, most of the time will be pleasant surprise.
Thank you. So I will just go through a few slides to show how we had taken our journey. In the past, I think all of us know, the library is almost the only place, the physical library, when there was no internet, no TV. People have to come to libraries to get either the information or the books and magazines that they want. And they have to come to library also to join in a talk, attend a program, view an exhibition, because everything was physical. This is a typical scene in our library, and I think in many of your libraries it's probably the same. In the old days, people have to bring their library card, and they have to join the library as a member and show their card before they can borrow books. So we used to have this up to even the middle of 1990s, where people queue up to borrow and return books. In the past 10-15 years, we had done quite a lot of automation to enable our users to borrow and return books much more conveniently. Here you see on the screen on the left is the radio frequency tagged books where people can check in on their own. And of course, we have a gate to make sure that people borrow books before they leave the library, and they can also check out books at the library. And on the right side, you can see that like many other libraries, we have also gone into using web services to put out our content so that more and more users can access them much more easily. So today, instead of users going to the library, we like to see the library coming to the users. And it should be users wherever they are, especially in the digital platform. So at the beginning, we used to build virtual libraries, which is like a website where we park all our materials there and hope that our users will come and use us. We build a lot of DIY services so that people can help themselves. They can borrow books, return books, join as members, pay their fines, everything like that. And then we digitize a lot of our materials so that users can access to a lot more than they can get physically from each library. So on the left, you see it's a manual checkout system, and on the right side of the top image is the self-check machine where users can borrow books on their own. And the second service was the counter service where people can, for example, return their overdue, pay their overdue fines, and also book for programs and spaces in the library. So these are self-help kiosks that we have set up for users. And we also moved the service from people having to come to libraries to read to users reading online. And now our wish is that people can read a lot of our materials online from outside the library, because I think our users are very, very busy today and they often cannot find time to come to our library. And of course, the last few years, I think 5 to 10 years, internet and mobile devices have become so pervasive that many of our users do not even bother to visit our library website to obtain their materials. Many of them just Google for it. In fact, librarians ourselves sometimes we ourselves also go to Google and look for some information, which leads us, hopefully, to authoritative sources and the libraries itself. So here, we recognize that instead of looking at the internet and search engines as challenges, we see them as opportunities for us to make use of them to help us reach our users. And NLB rode on the waves by digitizing a lot of our materials and putting them out through microsites for the search engines to crawl index our content and for users to find them more easily. So we had one service called Singapore Infopedia, which started with about 1,000 articles, and when it was part in our website, we used to get only about 400 to 500 page views a month, or let's say 5,000 page views a year. After we put them out to a microsite and allowed the search engine to crawl and index them, we found that the use increased exponentially. And today we get about 2 million page views a year for about 2,000 articles. And many of our users came in and discovered us through search engines. So NLB, from this experience, went forth and multiplied our microsites. And today we have about 6 or 7 key sites where people come in and look for content such as newspapers, books, images, and many of them found it is very convenient for them because they can just search them on Google or any other search engine. So now I would like to start moving back to where we hope we will bring our libraries to in the future. So far I've covered how we started, having users come to the library, which of course was quite limiting as a service because people have to make an effort to go to the library to use any of the services, and how that became a little bit more convenient, where the library built more virtual and digital services to enable people to read or use them from where they are, whether through their laptop, iPad or smartphone. And in the future, we would like to make it much easier for people to search for information by enhancing the search capability and also develop services together with our users. So is there still a role for libraries? I think this is a question that libraries and librarians have repeatedly asked ourselves. In our view, we feel that there is still a role because the library will still play that connecting role. What is perhaps more important is to understand the needs of our users and to bring relevant information to them in the shortest time possible, and also at the time when they need the information. I think this is not easy. Librarians have for many, many years tried to do this. However, it's never been an easy task to handle, and we hope that in the years to come, we will be more successful in this area. So what's next? In fact, later on, Siang, Hock and Peng Wah will be covering more of this, but I'll start with a few slides. This one really tells us that there's so much information today in the world that our users have great difficulty finding them. In fact, we are re-looking at our info literacy programs all over, because we found that many of our users have difficulty looking for the exact information that they need, just because there's just so much information out there. And our users are such busy people, they don't have time to spend too much time searching for information, and I think what we are hoping to do is to bring the relevant information to them in a manner that they can find it more useful as and when they need it. So one of the things that we have been looking into is the linked open data. which I will just share a little bit of a POC that we did recently. Earlier this year, NLB did a proof of concept or POC on linked open data. What we did was to take a few newspaper articles where we pulled out the dates, events, people, and quotations from our founding fathers from these newspapers, and we pulled it into a database. Additional data from NLB catalog, other external sources such as the National Archives of Singapore, the British Library, and other libraries were added. These are linked to make meaning, and from here the staff were able to create a story on the history of Singapore's maritime ports. NLB's POC include text mining. Names of organizations, the people involved, and the events were extracted from the newspaper articles. These were converted into an open data standard called RDF, or Resource Discovery Framework. The resulting database contains terms that can be read by both people and machines. With the categorization of data based on context created by the library, machines can create more images between data and the meaning attached. This makes it possible for users to use and reuse the data for a variety of purposes. The libraries, librarians, and end users can create new applications for the web and new services for smartphone users. This extends the reach of libraries significantly. I will now pass on to Siang Hock to continue on the other POCs.
Hello, everybody. My name is Siang Hock. I must apologize first because I'm having a bit of a cough. Okay, let me continue from this part and describe a bit more in terms of a number of things that we have been exploring. On top of exploring the use of linked open data, we have also started to look into the use of data mining and text analytics to connect content. Data mining is a fairly established technology and that has been used very successfully in many other industries. For example, many banks actually use data mining to assess the credit ratings of their customers. Telcos have also leveraged on data mining to detect potential frauds. In an earlier slide, we also saw that lots and lots of the data out there are actually unstructured data, more than 90% of them. So text analytics is again another area that is very critical because it is a technology that actually uses linguistic and also statistical techniques to actually extract concepts and patterns from text documents. Okay, I will share with you a number of the NLB services where data mining and text analytics technologies have been used, and also a proof of concept that we have just completed. One of the first data mining applications that we have implemented was this thing called the read-alike recommendation engine. Most of us are quite familiar with the Amazon.com's customer who bought this item also bought these other items sort of recommendations. I think that is a very critical part of Amazon.com's success. The read-alike recommendation engine actually works in the same way, but using our collections within NLB. The engine is actually based on what we call the collaborative filtering technique. Okay, it is something that is actually used a lot in recommendation engines. It actually mines a huge amount of user activities, in our case, the loan records, the loan history, and to identify titles that are related. So, in certain sense, patrons who borrow this title also borrow these other titles. NLB has a patron base of over 2 million members. that's really huge, especially if you consider that the Singapore population is only slightly above 5 million. So every other person in Singapore is actually our customer. Every year, NLB patrons generate over 33 million loans, and that is also increasing. So with such a huge amount of data that we have, NLB is definitely in the very unique position in Singapore to know the reading habits of Singaporeans, and therefore with that to provide the most relevant recommendations in the local context. Let me just run through in a bit more detail the recommendation engine. For every title that we have, and we have more than 1.5 million titles, we will identify all the patrons who borrow a particular title over a period of time. So in this illustration, there are over 1,000 patrons who have borrowed that particular book. We will then look at all the titles these 1,000 patrons have in turn borrowed over the same period of time. That is again a huge number of titles. We will then pick the most popular titles amongst them to make the recommendation. As you can see, it is a fairly simple approach, and the results have been very, very good. We generated the recommendations every month, once a month, and it basically only took about 10 hours for us to run the whole entire NLB collections of over 1.5 million titles. We have implemented the read aloud recommendation at a few NLB service points. One of the service points is the read-on microsite. The read-on microsite is actually a microsite where the whole of the NLB's physical collection has been made searchable via the popular search engine. Again, applying the same approach that Ms. Ngian has elaborated earlier on in the presentation. On the right of the read-on screen, within the red box, you will see the read aloud recommendations under the text. Our patrons also borrow this, the following. This service has been quite popular based on the statistics that we have seen. It is certainly something very useful for us. We also have another service known as the Library in a Pocket, which is actually the mobile web application that the patient can use to access to the library services and resources on the go. Right now, Singapore's current mobile penetration rate is about 152% as of July this year. So Singaporeans are very tied to their mobile phones, and they really love to be able to do all kinds of things on the phone. So Library in a Pocket is a critical service for NLB. A feature of the Library in a Pocket is obviously the catalog search. The screenshot on the right shows the same read aloud recommendation under the section of other related titles. So again, we try to make it as convenient as possible for our patrons to be able to get our recommendations pushed to them, and these are actually very, very useful recommendations for them. So far, we have looked at what the last two service points are actually what we call the title level recommendation. We have also implemented patron level recommendations. That's where we look into the loan history of each and every patron and recommend titles that he or she might like. So for example, on this screen itself, this is the check your account page for our patrons. As you can see, the recommendations are displayed prominently beside the patron's current loans on the right of the screen. We have also tried our hands on text analytics. So to recap, text analytics is about the use of either linguistic or statistical techniques to extract concepts and patterns from text-based documents. The first example that I'm showing now is showing here is the Infopedia website, which again Ms. Ngian has touched on earlier on. The screenshot on the left, that's the one. To allow users to continue to find other relevant content within Infopedia articles, and also in other NLB collections, we actually perform an information extraction on the article's full text to extract the most important key terms. These key terms are displayed beside the article so that a simple click will bring the users immediately to other content. The other example is also pretty interesting. We did a revamp of the Picture SG microsite in November last year. Picture SG is again another popular online collection, and these are pictures of Singapore. A key feature that was introduced during that revamp was social tagging. Instead of starting the social tagging from zero, we actually use the same information extraction capability to extract key terms, and this kind of help to seed the social tags on the page so that it doesn't really look empty, and actually people could then start to add on to it, or even make changes, or even update, delete those that are not relevant. I will now go through a recent proof of concept that we completed. This POC is about using text analytics to identify related content. This slide shows a CNN news article that I put out, and that was on the 22nd of September this year. It's about the iPhone 5. The wait is over. At the end of the article is the Will Recommend section, showing other related articles. I find such recommendations rather useful, and I myself would typically click on many of these recommendations. So how does that apply to our POC? Okay, Newspaper SG is one of the most popular services from NLB. It is an online resource of current and historic newspaper in Singapore and Malaysia. NLB has invested quite significantly into the digitization of these newspapers, and you can actually search into these newspapers published even between 1831 to 2009, and we're actually continuing to digitize more of this. NLB has in fact digitized this newspaper even to the article level. So now we have got over 15 million articles available in Newspaper SG. It would certainly be very, very interesting and very exciting, and definitely useful if you are able to generate recommendations automatically for all these 15 million newspaper articles based on their similarities. What we have done for this POC is that we have took a year's worth of newspaper articles from the Straits Times, which is a fairly popular newspaper in Singapore. That was over 1,000 articles in that particular year. We then pushed the articles through this particular software known as Hock. Hock is an established open source software under the Apache Software Foundation. The software focuses on machine learning and data mining. So I won't go through the details of how we do it, but basically by using the standard out-of-the-shelf command line features, we were able to generate recommendations, and for that 50,000 articles, that will only require processing of less than 5 minutes. So let me show you some examples of the results of that particular POC. Let's look at one particular example of this particular POC. We are now looking at an article published on the 10th of November 1989. The title is Goldsmith Group to Relaunch the Takeover Plan. That's shown on the left of the screen. The list of the similar articles generated by Hock, sorted by the most similar first, is shown on the left bottom corner of the slide. Okay, I've also shown some snippets of these articles, these highly similar articles, and if you look at them, they actually in fact relate to the same event. In fact, if these articles are organized in a chronological order, if you were to follow the red arrows, you actually see how the whole story unfolds. This would certainly be very useful for both casual users, casual readers, or researchers interested in that particular takeover saga. We could then easily incorporate a particular We Recommend section in our newspaper SG website to bring these articles directly to the users at the point and in the context of the articles that they are reading. So it is to us something that is really exciting. We are now expanding the POC to include more years of newspaper articles and also from more than one newspaper, so that the story can be more comprehensive and complete. We will continue to explore on the use of data mining, text analytics, and link open data. I would say that NLB is only really touching the surface of the possibilities that these technologies can bring. For example, we can certainly include other NLB collections for that similarity processing. This will give us recommendations across collections. We can also enrich the process with machine translation, say for example between English, Chinese, Malay, and Tamil, the 4 official languages in Singapore. That will give us recommendations across languages. We can also push the text through concept extraction software and only process the content based on concepts. This will give us recommendations based on concepts. As you can see, the possibilities are many. As we progress through our experimentation, we will definitely learn what works and what won't. We are therefore moving towards a more intuitive journey of discovery, and I do expect this journey to be long and bumpy. Nonetheless, it will be an exciting journey that can result in a significant improvement in helping our users to find answers faster. So, I will now pass the mic over to Peng Hua, who will be giving some concluding remarks.
I certainly hope it's concluding. I don't have any slides. In fact, I don't even understand why Ngian asked me to talk. But anyway, let's make it a bit informal. I don't have any script, but I just want to talk out of my head, which is my gift indeed. To conclude this session, first, I think there are 2 things we hope that the presentation, at least from Siang Hock part, will give you. Number 1, a sense that we think the traditional way of keyword search, machine gun approach, hit or miss, is not enough. Especially when the explosion of information, it is not really applied to us to match with Google, to say that within less than half a second, I give you 60 million return for a search word, because nobody will read through all of them. And that's the reason why we feel that with the explosion of information, it has become critical for us to look at what is beyond keyword search, moving from a keyword search to a connecting of meaning. As you can see, the experiment that Siang Hock has shared, that if you just take a particular newspaper article and look at some of the keywords, you will get many things, but they are not related. But if you are able to look at some of the meaning of the article, then you get a bit more. Of course, there are many other things. Therefore, this need to share with you that the second sense we want to pass across is that although we say we have done a lot of proof of concepts, but we cannot say that we really have a firm, true grasp of what we are going to hit, what kind of obstacle that we have, or have we gained sufficient knowledge. It is really an experiment. Experiment we think is worthwhile, experiment we think is exciting, because we see that moving from keyword to connecting through meaning is something to us is inevitable. What we are trying to achieve is to provide less for more, less result for more relevance. And I think this is the only way to do it. However, I just also want to flip the other side of the coin to share that what we have shared about moving from keyword to connecting meaning. It's only one aspect of work that we feel necessary for the future. But library will still have to maintain its own basic role, which is to really lower the barrier for people to access to information. Even our very basic, traditional, long-time rule of lending books, something that we cannot take away. It is about social leveling of the access to information, something that we will still have to provide, and is still key and is still very important. We are not going to drop that, abandon that, and just move on to connecting of meaning. Even our basic research, basic reference services, all these are for us is important because they allow us to lower the barrier to access to information. We're not going to be a consultant, but we are going to at least achieve this role of social leveling. So this is something that I don't want people who heard our presentation thinking that this is what we are moving and leave the rest behind. We are not. We're carrying those, but we think we need to expand it. Furthermore, when we talk about connecting meaning beyond keyword search, at least I personally would like to venture to say that we are not really talking about library eventually can go into this area to serve all things to all men. We can't. The vast amount of information available, there are many niche players in the world who's going to do certain things that they're good at. Whether it's Wikipedia, whether it's Google to the search world, we cannot compete with them. Therefore, I would like to say that NLB, or hopefully its library, can only serve what I call something to some men. And that means we have to look at what is uniquely NLB content that we will be able to connect them, to connect to user. I think that's critical. If we try to cover the whole world, it's impossible. In fact, we can't even cover the whole of Singapore. That is also impossible. So that is that's another key point I'd like to share. The final key points I'd like to share is that having done all these, to really connecting some of our uniquely NLP content together and to connect to user, we must eventually think of a way to take this content to the hands of our patrons. And that's the reason why one of the other things, apart from what we have done so far in the POC, is to how to make use of our mobile devices. Siang shared that the mobile penetration of Singapore is really almost at 1 to 2. And it's very pervasive to Singaporeans. So how are we going to get those information that are allowing them to discover, to navigate, to browse through where they are, depending on what they have in their hand and depending on when they want it. And that to rely and to explore the mobility technology to take the information to where they are, to us is just as important to connecting content. Because if not, then we will just wasting our effort. So now I'd like to ask if Ngian want to conclude the conclusion. Then I'll leave a question.
Okay, as far as our presentation is concerned, we have shared all the ideas and the experiments that we have done. So Steve, do we want to take any questions at this point?
I think that would be great. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. That's the third icon over in the participant window, or you can put a note in the chat. I'll start us off by asking if you have a sense of your current reach with those in Singapore. Do you know what percentage of people use the library, or what your average cost per capita is for the library expenses?
The question is, what proportion of people who live here use the library, and what's the cost?
Yeah, or what your investment is per capita.
Okay. Okay. We are a national library board with 1 national library and 24 public libraries. So it is a fairly large system. As Hock mentioned, we have over 2 million members and about 38 million visitors a year. Our annual budget is around 200 million a year to support all these libraries, including collection services and manpower. Does that answer the question?
It does. Well, maybe you can help a little. So we heard from the Shanghai library people today, and they spend about $1 per person in Shanghai as a whole on library books. Do you have a comparable figure?
Okay, because our 200 million serve 38 million. Because if it's per capita, it is a lot of repeat use, and also the digital side, we have another measurement. So I do not have the per head or per population cost.
The Shanghai library is calculating on the research because we are including a public library.
Yeah, for the Shanghai library, the $1 per user cost is for the whole range of services or for specific services in the Shanghai library.
So someone in the chat put the figure of Singapore spending US dollars, $5.60 per capita. I don't know if that's accurate, but that was actually apparently used in the presentation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I think the costs will probably vary for all the different services that we provide, whether it's lending service, reference service, exhibition costs, programming costs. Those are where the key services where we provide services to our users.
So it looks like Eric has a question. I'm giving you the microphone, Eric. If you'd like to click on the talk button, you can ask your question by voice, or it looks like you've put it in the chat. His question is, what are the main niche areas that NLB focuses on in terms of target audience and subject in order to connect users and content beyond keywords?
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, because we have a national library and also a public library system, the public library serves the users in a whole variety of collections, from very popular materials to more serious materials. So it is the general public, from the very, very young to retirees. For the National Library, we would serve the more serious users who are looking for more specialized materials. And of course, here we focus a lot on the Singapore heritage and the Singapore current materials, because the National Library has the statutory role to collect and make accessible any material on and about Singapore. So although our target audience would be everybody in Singapore, but they would be at least people in their late teens to retirees to use the National Library.
I talked a little bit about just now so-called uniquely Singapore content. The question is that have we identified, well, I guess is that have we identified any of them? To be honest, we are still feeling our way in to look at what is uniquely Singapore. But to give you a few examples, for instance, Siang mentioned about our, say, book recommendation. Because we feel that one set of information which is uniquely to NLB is the reading habit of Singapore. We have 30-odd million loans a year out of the 2 million members, out of our 5 million collection. We think over these years, our 30 million is only just 1 year. It has been happening in the last 14, 15 years. And therefore, we can comfortably say that NLB has this unique knowledge about the reading habit of Singapore. Although some may argue that, well, these are all mostly physical books. But on the other hand, while the world is transiting to electronic, we also ask ourselves, do people change format means that they change the reading habit? Maybe or maybe not. But at this stage, we do know a lot from the borrowing pattern, from the age, from the demographic, and from some other information that we have. We do have certain information. That's why our book recommendation and other things that allow us to connect people to people and people to content. Another thing that we think that we also have some unique position to do, in fact, two projects. One of them, we also have this project called Singapore History. We are doing a portal site whereby we're going to compile the history of Singapore, where it is going to be something unique to NLB, again, which give us the privileged position to connect content to content and content to people. Second project that we have is we have this Singapore memory. Just to give an example, we are targeting to collect 5 million memories by the 2015. If we can do that, I think there will be a lot of unique Singapore memories content that we are holding. And through our data mining, through the connecting of knowledge, we may be able to allow users to discover the collective memory of Singaporeans and things that are impacting them, things that reflect the maturity of as a nation, things that reflecting the culture of Singapore. And this is going to be absolutely treasured to Singapore and yet absolutely unique to Singapore. And these are some of the area, but in terms of do we have a very well definition of knowledge that we're going to connect, I must admit that we still have to continue to learn and continue to experiment.
Is there any other question?
If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. There was a mention in the chat of open source software. Is any of the proof of concept projects, do any of them use open source software?
We actually use the open source software Hock for the proof of concept for the newspaper SG proof of concept, which I described just now. So that is a fairly established open source software that we have actually used for the POC. Also, we do look at such possibilities, and where they are applicable, we will then actually use them for our systems. Another example in terms of open source software that we have implemented here within NLB is the Alfresco Enterprise Content Management System. That is again a open source software. There's an open source version of it. Obviously, there is also a supported version. NLB has decided to use the open source software for our purpose, for our content management. Yes, so we do explore the use of open source software in our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any other questions? Please feel free to put a question in the chat or to raise your hand. We've got just a couple minutes more. So YIT, I'm giving you microphone privileges. If you want to turn your mic on, you can click on the talk button at the top left. His question is, can you elaborate more on surprise discovery? And I'd be curious.
Okay. Okay, I say what I understand because here we are always very keen to create surprises for people. We have a program which is called Turn the Corner, where you come and attend this program and you don't know exactly what to expect. And people tell us it is interesting because they come with nothing in their expectations, and when they come, they learn new things that they never thought they would discover. So we find that there's a lot of content in our collections that a lot of people may not know that it's there, or it may be on topics that they have never thought of because they are so focused on learning about these specific things. So we have, for example, services that include what's next, where people can click and then they look at so-called related but new areas which they might not have thought of searching for. So can I ask Bing Hua to come back now, sit here, and say a few words about this, because this is something we have been trying very hard to create surprises for people so that they can learn things without planning to learn.
Okay, to answer it, I don't know. Okay, it's a little bit like this. Sometimes you do see a vision that you believe that it will give you that exciting future, the worthwhile effort to push, but you don't know the details. What we are saying here is that if at the end of the day, to progress from keyword search to connecting knowledge, we really are going to gun for a network knowledge. It's not a single path. It's not a hierarchy, which is something that we've always been doing. But knowledge is not hierarchy because humans don't think hierarchically. They think network. So if you can connect knowledge to knowledge and subsequently connect knowledge to people through a network fashion, then the path that you take is not something that you go from top to bottom, but you can go sideways. So therefore, if you go into a piece of content, that content doesn't have just one concept. It will have the multiple, related or even not related. And from there, we will not stop the user to digress or to move into a totally different path, which he may not realize it was there. And that is what we are hoping to get. How? We are just trying some little experiment here and there, like the way that we did for the newspaper, the way that we try to look at, how the memory can allow people to, relate to each other and so on. But we see that once knowledge is being connected, being a network, then this surprise discovery definitely will be part of the outcome.
I think we also have a question on serendipity discovery. That one probably is easier to explain. We notice that many of our users come to the library and sometimes they don't come in to look for any specific thing. They just come in and browse, and we have got different ways to present the collections to them, either like in a bookstore where you highlight certain materials that we feel would be of interest to our users, and then they just go along the shelves or the display area and pick up things as they go along. So that we thought it is something that is quite common in many libraries and where our users are concerned. Those are very targeted. They would go to the online catalog and they look for particular material. Those are people who know their specific needs. So I hope we make that a bit clearer. Is there any other question or comment? We also welcome your comments. Singwa say probably so. Lucky search.
I think we should probably wrap up. Thank you so much. I think we should probably wrap up. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I will say that this presentation really shows a little of what NLB is trying to do. NLB stands for the National Library Board of Singapore, and the value add we see in this series of things we're doing is to make more meaning out of the content that we have, and especially in the digital side, we notice that there are many more opportunities for us to make connections. Because in books, they are all physically typed, either in a book or in articles. But in the digital side, we can break down the content that we have and then create new meaning, new linkages in even bite-sized portions. So we hope we're able to see more results and also test with our users. And we thank you very much for the opportunity to share. And we thank our audience for sharing with us their thoughts and their questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. We'll go ahead and close the session. The recording will be up within a few minutes.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve, as well.